Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the relatively uncommon electric-type Pokemon Tadbulb, the EleTadpole Pokémon, and its relatively rare evolution Bellibolt, the EleFrog Pokémon. Although they might not have the outward appearance of a serious threat to many, the members of the Tadbulb family are still unique creatures that can give quite the shock to anyone that is not prepared for their electrical attacks.
Tadbulb have small dark brown bodies with a large rounded head and a small tail, the base of which is orange in color with a rounded orange tip at the end of the tail. Their head has a bright yellow covering over it that can light up when coursing with electricity, while the face has a single pair of white eyes with orange trim and a thin orange mouth with yellow cheek markings on each side. Their evolved form, Bellibolt, have larger, rounded and oblong green bodies with a pair of small orange digiless feet and a pair of orange arrow-shaped marks on their lower ends of their form, as well as a pair of digiless green arms and a large black belly with a yellow core in the center where their belly button dynamo is located. They also have a pair of false pinprick black eye structures with white sclera on the sides of the head, with their real face having an orange spot on the top of the head, yellow eyes, and the same sort of mouth seen on their pre-evolved form. The members of the Tadbulb family are completely unique among amphibious Pokemon for the power to generate electrical energy through the motion of their bodies. This is only possible because these beasts contain an organ inside of them that is able to use kinetic energy to power a series of catalytic reactions that can then generate an electrical current that they can use to launch electric-type attacks with. In the case of Tadbulb in a juvenile state, they generate their power by moving their tails back and forth in the air, and while it might not be enough to give them a great deal of power, it is still enough to give them a useful jolt of energy to defend themselves with in the wild. The evolved form Bellibolt, on the other hand, are able to stretch their bodies and expand and contract it steadily to generate a current, and they've got enough power to make them a notable offensive threat. In either case though, the dynamo that is set up in this fashion by the movements makes them difficult to get near, as they can generate and release their electrical power at pretty much any time, but proper training can help them to learn how to control themselves in these situations.
This also ties into their abilities, as while these creatures can often be coursing with electricity and thus can be a hazard to touch directly, having access to static as a base ability, and those that tend to live near the water more can have moisture forms that can grant them access to damp as a hidden ability, Tadbulb are also quite simple-minded and can illustrate their own tempo ability as a base ability as well, while their evolved forms are more akin to use their internal dynamo for extra power when struck, feeding into their base electromorphosis ability.
As far as the combat capabilities are concerned, in the case of Bellibolt, these beasts can't exert much in the way of physical offense for the most part, and tend to be very slow-moving as a whole, so their base attack and speed stats are below average for a fully evolved electric-type Pokemon. Everything else about them, however, is above average, and they can turn and prove to be decently resilient fighters that can deliver some nasty electrical shocks to others that are unprepared for them.
While Tadbulb might have fairly poor defenses as juveniles, they can still prove to be a bit of a shock to handle in the right cases.
Although their electrical powers might not be that incredible, they are enough to allow these beasts to float freely off the ground through electromagnetism, and thus gives them a serious advantage in the wild. These creatures are not large enough to fend off the attacks of much larger foes, so they use this levitation power to get above them and out of the way, which helps us not only keep themselves from being eaten whole, but also benefits them in that it gives them a prime opportunity to discharge the electricity to zap small prey that make for a good meal. Aside from this, these creatures are also known to use this power to float high in the air when thunderstorms are overhead, as they can absorb the electrical power from them to keep themselves in top shape. If these creatures find themselves in danger, they will blink the light from their internal dynamo on and off as a warning signal, and trainers should take this as a sign to be cautious, as it can often attract the attention of the Tadbulb and result in a swarm that can be potentially dangerous to confront unprepared.
Not too dissimilar from the members of the Poliwag family, these creatures can stay as Tadbulb their entire lives, as they are unable to evolve and reach a more typical adult state without the need of some special help.
If they are exposed to the radiant energy of a thunderstone, however, this can turn on their evolutionary genes and finally help them evolve into Bellibolt. Aside from granting them a needed upgrade as far as the overall power and stamina are concerned, even if it does nothing to change their base speed stat, this process also allows these creatures to learn the slack-off technique and grants them potential access to a unique ability that can come in handy for them. First of all, while these creatures might appear to have large white eyes on the sides of their bodies, these are in fact false eyes and act as the main conduits through which they release their electric-type attacks. Their real eyes are the yellow structures in the middle of their body, and they use this to trick and scare off others in the wild to keep themselves from being attacked directly. If this disguise fails, however, they can have access to a unique ability known as electromorphosis that can provide a great deal of help in a confrontation. Since they must effectively churn their own bodies to make electrical power, if these creatures are hit by an attack in a fight while this ability is in their possession, it can cause this churning to increase the electrical power from the movement of them getting hit, and in turn will power up the damaging effects of the next electric-type move they use. It might require them to actually get hit to make the most of it, but given they're not all that fast, it can work wonders for them and render them a far more threatening force than their odd appearances might otherwise denote.
These amphibians are honestly so adorable and fun to play with, and they tend to get along with people of all types, making them great for pets if you're looking for something a tad different from the usual fare. As tadpoles, Tadbulb are not the strongest of fighters to be sure, but their small size makes it a lot harder for predators to get a hold of them in turn, and this does them a bit of a favor in that regard. The fact that they can at least blink their heads to show distress can also be useful in helping them maintain strong mental health, or otherwise avoiding swarms of them in the wild. Bellibolt, while notably stronger than Tadbulb, are not that different in terms of personality, and thus can make for great friends if you're willing to give them a chance. Getting too physical with them can result in some shocking effects to be sure, but these beasts honestly just like being friendly to others, and in turn can make great partners for anyone that's in need of electric-type Pokémon that can make the most of their powers without being a menace to others in turn.
They might not always show up as some of the best of Pokemon of their type, but the members of the Tadbulb family are still resilient creatures that can still give a shocking performance if they start getting battered around with direct contact. You might have to go out of your way to get a Thunderstone to make the most of them, but it can still be worth it for the unique skills and power these amphibians can bring to the table.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure that you keep them still if you're trying to give them some physical affection. They might not mean to do it on purpose, but these critters can still let loose one heck of a charge if their bodies move around and get their dynamos rearing and ready to go.
Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell and all that jazz, to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.